What is up, everybody? It's the Vish Kumaran Show. I'm Vish Kumaran. It's Tuesday night, and we're joined by the legend, as always, Mr. Larry Krueger. What's up, Larry?
What's up? How are you, man? Good to see you.
I'm good. I'm good. I mean,
I
I thought
love
we
our
were about to.
Tuesday. I love our Tuesday and Thursday hits.
Dude, yeah. I do too. I look forward to it, especially today, to be honest. I
Yeah.
thought this was going to be one of the slower weeks in terms of like 49ers content and what we were going to have to talk about. And then the owners' meeting comes in, and there was a lot said in the last 2 days by John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. There wasn't a lot said. There was a lot said there. And it leaves me with a lot of questions. I don't know where it has you. What were your kind of initial thoughts the back-to-back days on some of the things that were said? And then we'll start delving deeper, obviously, into the quarterback conversation, which is where a lot of those gems that they dropped really exist.
Well, on the Trey Lance thing, what he said at what John Lynch said at the combine seemed to be very much like, you know what? Trey's got to play. But that's the challenge because we got a team that's ready to go now. And the obvious implication was that Trey is not ready to go now. And then he followed that up with, we like Trey on our team right now. What? If we were sitting here and someone said, "Hey, you got Vish on your show," and I said, "Yeah, I've got Vish on my show right now."
Yeah.
That sounds like I don't want Vish on my show. If someone says, "Man, what do you think of Vish?" and I'm like, "Yeah, I love Vish. Vish is awesome." That's a compliment. To say, "Oh, what do you think of Vish?" I have Vish on my show right now. That sounds like I'm looking to make a change. And that's what I take out of it. They're looking to make a change.
Yeah. So they were. You're right. Like it's hard. It's hard to even argue with some of the things that they phrase a certain way. I think, Larry, the thing that gets me and the question I have, okay, and the reason I titled this "What Changed with the 49ers and Trey Lance," right, is the way he answered that question to me says a lot. Like before the season, Larry, or before the season last year in 2022, Trey Lance was the incumbent. He was the future face of the franchise. He was the guy they gave up 3 first-round picks for. They'd cleared the decks. They were getting rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, and they opened it up for him to become the guy, right? They ended up bringing Jimmy back, but they kept telling us we brought Jimmy back only to be the backup because it worked out financially. It made our quarterback room better. It's Trey Lance's job. Trey Lance is the guy, right? 80 snaps into the season, he snaps his ankle. He's out for the year. Right? That's what happened.
Right.
That's all that happened. Brock Purdy then comes in and plays great. So now the 49ers are calling Brock Purdy the incumbent. Makes sense, right? Brock Purdy was excellent for 8 games. You and I said that was the best quarterback we've seen under Shanahan. All of those things make sense. I'm here for that now. I think Brock Purdy earned that in given his play. Unfortunately, that's what happened to Trey Lance. The issue I have, Larry, is that Purdy's hurt right now. And Shanahan and Lynch, who both answered the question differently, gave us one thing that was clear to me, Larry. They gave us the response that Brock Purdy is the starter, but they're not exactly sure when he's coming back. If you are not sure when Brock Purdy is coming back, right, and you had this plan to make Trey Lance the face of your franchise last year, and all that happened in between was that he took 80 snaps and broke his ankle, why is he competing with Sam Darnold right now this offseason, right? If nothing changed with you and Trey Lance between 2022 and 2023 with your opinion of Trey Lance, right, wouldn't Trey Lance just be the incumbent until Brock Purdy came back?
Right.
And yet he's in a competition with a guy in Sam Darnold who's washed out on 2 different teams. My question is, why is that and what changed? And honestly, Larry, the only conclusion I keep coming to is that the 49ers just don't believe in him. They just don't think that there's a long-term future necessarily there. They don't want to give up on him because they have, invested so much in him, but they don't believe that the long-term future is there. They think Purdy is the guy that's going to be the long-term answer. I mean, we're going to talk about a few Ian Rappaport statements. I mean, Ian Rappaport doesn't talk like that unless somebody is telling him to say that. And so we're going to talk about all of that, but that's the only conclusion I can come to, Larry. 80 snaps, and he's gone from being the future face of the franchise to having to compete for the backup job. The only thing I can think of is that they just don't believe in him. They just don't want to tell us that directly.
Yeah. This is about letting everybody saying what you need to say and then trading him. They don't have a problem giving compliments when they want to. They both, Kyle and John, both, jump up quickly and are like, well, first of all, Trey is a tremendous person. Well, if you can compliment him as a person, why can't you compliment him as a football player? Because they don't want to compliment him as a football player because they don't think much of him as a football player. I think that's really where the rubber meets the road here. And you can sit here and say whatever you want and spin it any way you want, but it's clear as day. I mean, you are basically telling us that that the quarterback that you traded up gave a ton to get at this point is on the same level as Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold has some of the worst statistics in the league. Sam Darnold has terrible numbers. If you go back and look at his numbers, I mean, they're not good. They're not good numbers. So why are you so pro Sam Darnold when he's like the bottom of the league in almost every category? I don't get it. I'm not understanding that. Am I missing something?
I mean, Shanahan described it a lot today, right? They're really into the talent of the player. I mean, he went on and on raving about the skill set of the player. And I think we've talked about it too, right? He's got really quick feet for a big guy. He's got a quick delivery. He really fixed his motion, right? He used to have that really loopy, drop the ball below his waist motion. If you notice, Larry, he changes. I was talking to Derek Klassen yesterday at QB Class. Shout out to him. And something he told me off air when we were talking about Sam Darnold is how he changed his motion has to do with how he holds the ball, Larry. He used to hold the ball all the way up here so the ball would naturally always dip and he would have that very elongated, unnatural throwing motion. And now he holds the ball lower and it's more natural and it's more quicker. But either way, they really like the skill set of the player. And I think liking Sam Darnold is okay, Larry. Like, they like the player clearly. But what I do not understand is you can like Sam Darnold all you want. How did we get from where Trey Lance, you gave him the job, you opened up everything for him. Kyle Shanahan even said he thought he was going to have a huge year. If you thought all of those things, then 80 snaps and him breaking his ankle shouldn't make you think that, like, hey, he should be competing for the backup job now, right? Like, if Brock Purdy was healthy, Larry, I understand why Trey Lance is the backup. That's no problem. It makes sense. Brock Purdy was excellent for 8 games. Brock Purdy is not healthy. We don't know when he's coming back, Larry. And yet, somehow, Trey Lance is still competing for the job. Something has changed in those 80 snaps, and I think it's that they don't necessarily look at him as a long-term answer. They look at both him and Sam Darnold as short-term solutions here until Purdy comes back. And they just want to find the best short-term solution between them. And going to the compliment question, right? Kyle Shanahan rattled off line after line today about what he believes in Sam Darnold's skill set. When's the last time you've heard Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch talk about Trey Lance's skill set as a quarterback?
At
when
all.
He was drafted. When he was drafted. That's it. Since then, it's been dual threat, great guy, great professional, compliments Brock Purdy when he comes off the field, all of those kinds of things, but they never actually talk about him as a player. And in fact, Shanahan had a quote in today's presser when they were asking him about evaluating quarterbacks and all of that. And he was saying the guy has to throw and the guy has to throw very naturally. And if the guy is not capable of throwing, you hope he has other skill sets like being able to run and do all of those kinds of things to be able to help him out. I thought that was kind of a direct statement of what he thinks of Trey Lance. Now, that one I might be reading way into. I get it. That one, take that with a pinch of salt. Like, I've listened to his presser like 3-4 times, Larry. I dig deep into every single word he said. But I can't come to a different conclusion when I look at these details and how they are talking about the quarterback position and where they are with the quarterback position. The guy played 80 snaps, Larry. Things couldn't have changed that much in those 80 snaps.
It's amazing, really. And not only that, I mean, listen where this is what Darnold is. He's had 55 career starts. Last in the NFL in passer rating, 78.2. Last in the NFL in completion percentage, 59.7. Third most third worst interception percentage, ranked last in average yards per attempt. He really only had one positive 6-game stretch. It came last year with the Panthers. He went 4-2 in that stretch. But I mean, this guy has proven, if he's proven anything, it's that he's not good. If he's going to be a good player, he hasn't proven that at all. So I don't get it at all.
I mean, you put him in this situation, Larry. I think that's the thought process. Like you put him with these weapons in this offense,
a little continuity, some better
right?
weapons. Yeah.
Right. A lot of manufactured easy completions in this offense. You build up his confidence. I think that's the mindset because he has potential. Let's get to a couple questions here. 1B149 here says Lance's new name is Trade Lance. Jokes aside, is it possible that maybe they know something we don't, like he's really bad in practice? What else could it be?
Well, I'll say something that I've already seen. He's a one-speeded quarterback. Everything comes out hot. He doesn't. I haven't seen him layer a ball, throw a touch pattern. Everything's pretty hot. Everything's pretty heavy. He doesn't consistently throw a spiral, but he misses a lot of layups. And the one thing about it in the NFL is you have to be able to take what the defense gives you, and you have to make all your layups. And he doesn't. So, that's a big part of it. I think also, what they were really committed to was the idea of Trey Lance. And what they were really committed to was having a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract.
Yeah.
That's what they're really committed to.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty clear at this point. And I've been saying it since the end of the year, and people were calling me crazy. And I said it again at the combine, and I said it again today. They are trading Trey Lance. Everything about this screams, we are trading Trey Lance. They just don't want to get hosed. They don't want to get ripped off. So they're going to tell people, hey, you know what? We're in a great, listen to what Shanahan said today. He said, I feel we're in a very good position at quarterback. I hope all three quarterbacks are with us, but we will listen to trade offers.
Right.
That's what he said. He said, we will listen. Now, he may have phrased it a different way, but we will listen to trade offers. And then later in the presser, he came out and said that he probably will only have two quarterbacks this year. He said, he said that he wants three quarterbacks in camp, but fourth quarterbacks never get reps. And he said, he basically made it seem like he wanted two quarterbacks.
Yeah, and the trading Trey Lance suggestion has now become a national story, right? Like I saw PFT talked about it this morning. Saw Ian Rappaport had some interesting comments. Look, to answer 1B149's question directly, I don't know. I'm not there at practice. I don't have enough of a sample size to sit here and tell you Trey Lance is, good. Trey Lance is bad. Trey Lance is this. I think he's a talented player that's raw. If we got to see more, we can actually start talking about, the nuances of his game a little bit and getting into that. But right now we're really grasping at what we think he is but we're not sure. We haven't seen enough of a sample size. Now, the second part of it, I think there's some validity to it because I keep asking the question, what has changed, Larry? It couldn't have changed based on what they've seen on the field from him. They seem to say they love everything about him off the field, so they must just not like how he's progressing as a quarterback in 2 years. He must not be progressing the way they wanted him to progress. That would be my number one guess reading the tea leaves. There's no other way for me to look at this situation and guess why things are so different, right, Larry? Because if things didn't change with Trey Lance, Larry, I understand where Brock Purdy is and all of that, but given that he's hurt, wouldn't you just say Trey Lance is your starter? We picked Trey Lance, and last year was supposed to be Trey Lance's year. Unfortunately, he got hurt. Brock Purdy ended up bailing that season out and having a great year and looking like he could be a starting quarterback. Now, Brock Purdy is very seriously injured, which I don't think is being talked about enough, by the way, Larry. This idea that he's just going to walk back in week 4, he's going to be the same Brock Purdy as last year with no offseason, no work with his receivers, no training camp, all of that, and he's just going to start and do what he did last year. I'm not fully buying that. I wish some reporter asked Shanahan, you went through this injury thing with RG3. What has that taught you on terms of going through it with Brock Purdy? Nobody has talked about that. So Trey Lance and Sam Darnold competing to me means that clearly they don't have the same belief in him they had last year, and perhaps they needed to see some more growth. And Titus Muller here says, Kyle said it's an all-out competition that Trey could win, and it would be hard for him to win without playing. And so I heard him say this too, Larry, but I read it a little bit differently. To me, when he said this, he was just keeping the door open where if one of these guys starts the year and is starting off like 3-0, 4-0, they're probably not going to, bring back Brock Purdy and force him to replace that guy because the team is going to have momentum. That's what I think they're keeping the door open for when he says that.
They've had opportunities to compliment Trey as a player. They've bypassed those opportunities. I mean, this is what Kyle said today. Our feelings about Trey haven't changed. That's not true. That's not true.
If it hasn't changed, he's the starting quarterback. That's what they would have said
But that's
today.
what you say when you're shopping a guy. Oh, yeah, no. I mean, Lynch, come on, these guys, I think they're smart guys, but they're not geniuses. Okay. At the end of the day, I think you're probably smarter than them. I'll leave myself out of it. But my point is this. John Lynch, I think, is relatively smart, but the deal is when he came out and said, he said it at the combine. He was talking to the media, but he came across like he was talking to other general managers. He was talking to other general managers, and he was using the media to talk to them. And he basically was saying, you know what? We think the world of Trey. The makeup is off the charts. This guy's a tremendous kid. We haven't changed anything we think about him. Trey's got to play. And that's the challenge. Because we got a team that's ready to go right now. The implication is he's not ready to go right now. And then John followed that up with, we like Trey on our team right now. And then Shanahan said, our feelings about Trey haven't changed. So that's something you say when you're trying to trade him. Hey, hey, come on. Some Kyle's friend, Robert Saleh picks up the phone. Hey, Kyle, give me the real deal on Trey. Our feelings on Trey haven't changed. That's what you say when you're trying to move him. And then when he said with Brock out, Trey's got a chance to regain the QB1 job. Of course, you're going to say that because you're trying to trade him. But if he's really going to be the quarterback one, then you're not. Why are you bringing in Sam Darnold when you just said that you're only going to keep two quarterbacks? Why'd you give Sam Darnold some guaranteed money? Why does Sam Darnold have $11.5 million in guarantees? Why did Sam Darnold come to you on 5 minutes into the free agent market with all these elaborate incentives that were obviously negotiated? You have been planning this. This is your get out of Trey Lance jail card, and it's as obvious as day. You're going to see if what Darnold looks like and get the early returns on Brock's rehab. And then you're going to roll into the draft and you're going to tell everybody, you know what? We're not giving them away, but if you want to bowl us over, and then guess what? Whatever their best offer is going to be they got bowled over. So if
you think so? So you think this happens during draft time?
Yeah, if this happens. Oh yeah, absolutely. If this offer,
what about all the dead money though?
I think they can absorb it. I think they could reshuffle guys. They can move cap around and absorb that dead money hit. I think the other thing is today was a good example of why they should move Trey. Because look at the dialogue today on Twitter. You have content creators saying that if the Niners don't go with Trey, or if you're in any way pro Purdy, you're somehow racist. So if you're going to go there and you're going to make it a referendum on race, if I'm the Niners, I don't want any part of that. I don't want any part of that. Today, that's just content creators playing grab ass with their audience, trying to get clicks. But tomorrow, that might be a player at a podium talking to a writer in your locker room. You don't want any part of that discussion. You don't want any part of that fire. That's the hot button issue of our time. You're sprinting away from that. There's no way in hell if you're Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch, you want to get into some kind of debate over skin color. Come on. They don't want that. So what's a better situation for the Niners? Let's talk about it. What's a better, if you think Brock is the better quarterback, and they obviously do, they just told us he was number one and he's hurt and the other guy's healthy. So if you think Brock's the best quarterback you got, what's the best quarterback room? Brock and Darnold and Trey if you kept three, or Brock and Darnold and Clayton Tune, or Brock and Darnold and Tanner McKee, or Brock and Darnold and Jake Haener, or Brock and Darnold and the UCLA
DTR.
I mean, or I'm saying, what is a better situation? I could make a very compelling argument that Brock and Darnold and a rookie is a far, far better situation than Brock and Trey and Darnold. Trey Lance is not an ideal backup for anybody. Why would he be an ideal backup? He's 23 and he's never played. He's not an ideal backup quarterback. He needs to play, and he needs to play right now to develop, and he knows it. So if I'm Trey, I want to go elsewhere so I can play right now. And if I'm the 49ers, hell yes, I want to move him because I want what I can get as far as compensation. And I don't want this open debate. I want a clear-cut quarterback room. Brock's my 1, Darnold's my 2, Tanner McKee's my 3. Everybody knows it. There's no debate. There's no picking sides. There's no, let's go into the locker room and ask the wide receiver what they think. Let's not go ask the tackle what he's. No. We're not inviting the circus to town, and we're not going to have this incredibly sensitive, inflammatory debate publicly in the middle of my football team. I'm not doing it. So if I'm the Niners, I'm running from that. I don't want any part of that. Any part of that. And I really don't want any part of it if I think Brock's the best quarterback I got. Right?
So I disagree with you a little bit, not with your points and reasoning. It's tough to disagree with that right now because you're really just referencing everything that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have created the impression of, right? But I just feel like there is no gain as long as that 3-month timeline exists with Brock Purdy where you don't know when he's coming back. I feel like having both Lance and Darnold gives you the ultimate, flexibility right now with your quarterback room. But I do think there's also validity to what you're saying, right, with him not being ready to play, and they're not ready to commit to playing Lance either. That's the problem, right? They're not ready to commit to playing Lance. Here's what I will say, Larry. Here was my number one takeaway, and then we'll get to a couple of questions here. My number one takeaway was actually something you said a couple of points before. It was actually, I think, in your previous thing. My number one takeaway is that the 49ers were never married to Trey Lance. And this was a point that was made to me by Rob Guerrera, my buddy, Gold Standard Network. Make sure you go follow there. They were never married to Trey Lance, Larry. They were just married to a quarterback with the rookie contract. That's all they wanted. It didn't matter if that was Trey Lance or if it was Brock Purdy. They didn't care. They just wanted a quarterback with the rookie contract. And the way they're viewing Trey Lance right now, to me, is a sunk cost. They're saying, okay, we went up to get a quarterback. All we wanted was the cheap quarterback. We achieved that in our opinion because we feel like we have Brock Purdy, who's that cheap quarterback. So we don't have to necessarily do this with Trey Lance. And honestly, Larry, I think they're putting an incredible amount of pressure on Brock Purdy right now. I don't know if it's fair for a guy going into his second year not being able to go through the entire offseason. He had surgery 18 days ago, Larry, and there's an incredible amount of pressure for him to recover, rehab, come back, be full strength, and be playing at the same level he was at the end of the season last year when the entire team was peaking so that you can go on a Super Bowl run next year. I think they're putting an insane amount of pressure on him by doing that. I don't know if they're necessarily being fair to him either, but I kind of understand their situation too because they can't name anyone else the incumbent because he so clearly earned that with how he played last year. It's a really difficult situation for them to talk about, but I just find it stunning, Larry. I feel like if you had this plan with Trey Lance, you really believed in him, you took him number 3 overall. Now that Brock Purdy's hurt, why wouldn't you just go back to that plan that you had in 2022? Why you wouldn't, Larry? It's simple. They don't think that he's going to be the long-term future. They're not necessarily bought into that plan anymore, and they feel bailed out because Purdy ended up being good. They have a cheap quarterback, which is ultimately what they wanted. I don't think they wanted if the cheap quarterback ended up being Trey Lance, that's great. But it seems like they don't really care whether it was Trey Lance or not. They just wanted a cheap quarterback.
It makes a lot of sense when you think about all the debate over who did they trade up for? Did they trade up for Trey? Nobody trades up for a position. You just you trade up for a player. No, they traded up for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
They
So they really did trade up for a position. They didn't really care.
they
Could have been
traded
Mac
up
Jones,
for
could
a
have been Trey
rookie
Lance.
quarterback. They
Yeah.
wanted a quarterback on a rookie deal. They
That's
kind
it.
of said it today almost.
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted the quarterback on the rookie deal. That's why when he was asked about Lamar, he's like, Lamar doesn't fit. He doesn't fit our roster and he doesn't fit our cap. Well, there
Yep.
you go. So this whole like, hey, the Niners traded up into the draft. Who do they want? Do they want Zach Wilson? Do they want Trey Lance? Do they want Justin Fields? Do they want Mac Jones? They
They
didn't
didn't
know
care.
who they wanted. They didn't
Yeah.
know who they wanted. All they knew was that they would be in a primo position to land a rookie quarterback, and they weren't done with their evaluation period yet. Not all the pro days had come into had even happened by the time they made the trade. They literally made the trade with one thing in mind. We are getting a rookie quarterback, and we will have a quarterback on a rookie deal, and that's how we're going to build our football team. They said it today. They said it. So
Yeah.
the reason that seemed odd, because it was odd. The reason
Yeah.
it seemed like they traded up without a quarterback in mind, because they did trade up without a quarterback in mind. That is what happened.
Right.
And I don't believe for a second they were all wed on Trey from the beginning. No, they weren't. I think they were in evaluation mode. They were all wed to the rookie quarterback and keeping Bosa and I guarantee you they did an exercise on their board with Parag and Kyle and John, and they looked at their team with a veteran quarterback making 25 million, let's say, and they looked at their team with a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, and they said, you know what? We need a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal. And then they
Yeah.
just traded up and said, well, let's do a trade that we like, that we can make, and we'll just see what we want to do at the time. All that we know for sure is that we're taking a rookie quarterback.
Right. And it makes more sense why they would trade up to 3 the way they did, right? If you look at that mindset.
Right.
Because they just traded up because they wanted to make sure that they didn't lose out on getting a guy in a rookie contract. It was that simple. That's the only reason they traded up to 3, it seems. They just wanted to control their destiny to make sure that they thought there was one of 5 guys and they wanted to get one of those guys and get that contract. And that's why they don't seem that upset, actually, Larry, the way they're talking about Trey Lance. And they're able to talk both sides of their mouth with him, right? They're able to say, we really believe in Trey. Nothing's changed with Trey, but then also say, we're excited to see him in a competition with Sam Darnold. It's because they feel like they solved their problem no matter what, because Brock Purdy, they feel like, is the answer. I mean, Ian Rappaport said as much. They don't just view him as the answer today. They view him as the long-term answer.
He's a guy. He's the guy.
Right.
And I've been
Bobo.
saying that. I've said that this whole off season, man. I literally have. I said, Brock is not just have a good year. He's the guy. They see him as the guy. He is the guy. And all this pushback from all these people who were just like, no, it's Lance. They traded up. And it doesn't matter. They just wanted a rookie quarterback they could win with. They have a rookie quarterback they can win with. And now it's just a matter of, can they recoup some of what they lost in draft capital in a trade for Lance? Now, the question is, where's Lance going and for what? I think I would not be shocked at all if Zach Wilson was a Niner. Would not be shocked at all.
Would you be shocked if Trey Lance was a Jet? Because I would be blown.
I wouldn't be shocked if Trey Lance were a Jet. Because, I mean, even if they get Aaron Rodgers has got a year left. So maybe Saleh wants to do one more year of Trey watching Rodgers and then go to Lance. I don't know.
Here's my issue with them.
They want to part ways with Zach Wilson.
Here's my issue with them trading him, though, Larry. It's just that I don't see what capital they're necessarily going to recoup today, especially with him coming off of injury and so much being unknown. They lose money by trading him before June 1st if they trade him today, and they still have only one healthy quarterback on the roster right now, right? Like Brock
Well,
Purdy is
that's why I'm
still
saying
hurt,
Zach
and
Wilson. Because here's the thing. What does Zach Wilson need? Is Zach Wilson talented? Yeah. I did an interview with Steve Young before the draft,
right.
several. Steve didn't come out and say it, but he intimated many times that Kyle Shanahan loved Zach Wilson.
That's a lot of people say that. A lot of
I saw
people say
many
that.
interviews with Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson said he loved the Niners and loved Shanahan and wanted to be a Niner. So now Zach Wilson has to have a change of scenery. He's persona non grata in the biggest media market in the country. Guys on his team wore the T-shirt with the backup quarterback on the T-shirt. He has to find a new home. He's going somewhere else. He needs a change of scenery. And
Here's
I
the
think
difference, though,
and I
Larry.
think
Here's the
Lance does
difference.
too. I think
Here's the
Lance needs
difference.
Lance needs to be on a place where he can play at some point. He's not going to play here.
There's a big difference, though. When Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh are asked about Zach Wilson, they keep saying he's your number 2 quarterback. He's going to stay on this roster. We're not going to trade him. They don't
Yeah,
say
but
everybody's available for trade.
Yeah, but
But if
the
they
Niners
if
are saying the same thing about Trey. The Niners
no,
didn't
they're
say Trey.
not. No, they're not. They're saying they would listen on anything.
Yeah, but they also said that Shanahan did say today, with Brock out, Trey has a chance to regain the quarterback 1 job. So I mean, they're all saying the right things to keep their options open. But you're right. The 49ers wouldn't get rid of Trey if they didn't have another quarterback. So maybe Zach Wilson's coming back. I'm just saying a Trey
Perhaps.
Lance, Zach Wilson swap involving probably other pieces is not the worst idea of all time. If the Niners don't believe in Trey, if, as we know, Zach Wilson's persona non grata in the Apple, he has to be dealt. Here's the thing about it too. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are like, hey, we got a pretty good thing going. Their message is really clear. Hey, rest of the league, we like our quarterback room. We like Trey. We like Brock. We like Darnold. We're in a good spot. But John's already laid it out there. You know what? Trey's just got to play, and we're ready to win now. And he's just not as far along as Brock because Brock played more. So we're going with Brock. So John's got a built-in excuse of why he's trading a player that he quote unquote loves.
Right.
Where the Jets are in a position where everybody in the world knows that Zach Wilson needs a change of scenery, and they're not getting fair value. So if you're the Niners, you might be able to get Zach Wilson in a pick for Trey Lance. And you know what? That might be a better situation for the Niners. If they really, here's the bottom line on it, Vish. Shanahan and Lynch know a lot more football than we do.
Right.
They've seen a lot more of Trey than we do. They've seen Trey in meetings. They know him. They've heard him verbalize the position. They've seen him throw, on the field. They've seen every aspect of it. If they think that playing him would increase his value, he'd play. But if they think playing him would decrease his value, he sits. And I think it's the latter. And that's why Darnold's here. And personally, I think it's either going to be Brock starting week 1, or they're going to find a way to put Darnold on the field. And but as soon as Darnold hits the field in front of Trey Lance, Trey's value goes down. So I actually think they're going to take the cap hit and trade him on draft day. And I would not be surprised if he was a Jet. And I would not be surprised if Zach Wilson were a Niner.
Interesting. So that's very, very interesting from you. We'll get to a couple of questions and then we'll get back to this. So Bobo0383, by the way, really appreciate the donation. Very kind of you. Says, if the 49ers are done with Trey, this is annoying. Since 2019, Nick Bosa and Brandon Ayuk are the only first rounders who have provided an impact on the 49ers going into 2024. Not good.
Yeah, they've missed, and they've missed at the top and they've hit at the back of the draft. I'm not one of those people that just gives them a pass because they found DJ Jones in the 6th round and George Kittle in the 5th round and, Juwan Jennings on day 3 and Purdy on day 3. You still gotta hit with your top picks. So, I mean, they took Solomon Thomas, bust. They took Reuben Foster, bust. They've missed on some high picks.
It's not looking great with Kinlaw right now.
Kinlaw doesn't look very good right now. He looks very much like a bust.
Right. I mean, McGlinchey, I don't know if you could call him a bust, but he also didn't necessarily get a second contract with the team.
He was a right tackle you took in the top 10. How many?
Yeah.
Go back and look at the draft in the last 20 years. Tell me the number of right tackles that were taken in the top 10.
Lane Johnson.
Not too many, though.
I can remember.
Was he a top 10 pick?
Yeah.
Panay
Sewell also, right.
Wait.
Lane Johnson was the 4th pick in the draft.
Oh, okay.
That draft was Eric Fisher 1, Luke Jokel 2, Deion Jordan 3, Lane Johnson went 4.
Wow. Okay. But I mean, it hasn't happened a lot.
Hey, Larry, come on. That was good stuff, by the way.
That's good knowledge.
2013 draft. Come on. Yeah.
Come on, man. That's amazing. Somebody in here is like, wait, somebody in here said,
Frank Vasquez says,
Fork-tailed devil. Wilson in a pick? Larry, give me some of the stuff you're on, LOL.
Oh, okay. We'll get to some of the spicy conversation on Wilson right here. We'll just get to poor Frank's comment. We really appreciate Frank donating. He says, I don't think they will trade Trey during the draft or anytime soon because they don't know how Brock is going to be. Brock could struggle or have some issues with his arm.
If they wanted to give Trey Lance the job, they could have just given him the job. He was here and healthy and ready. And the only guy other than Brock, quarterback-wise, that was on the roster. The fact that they went and negotiated out a full-on contract with Sam Darnold, and already Kyle Shanahan has said been more complimentary of Darnold than he's ever been of Trey. Let's not overlook the obvious. It's like sometimes if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, guess what? It's a fucking duck. All right. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like all this like misdirection. They don't want to trade Trey. They don't like Trey. Otherwise, he would have already played. They would be handing him the job and celebrating him. They're not.
And that's really the issue, right? Everybody makes this kind of a Brock Trey thing. But I'm agreeing with the 49ers. Brock Purdy is the incumbent. He played great, right? But Brock Purdy's hurt. Why are we talking about him? He had surgery 18 days ago, and we have no clue what his timetable is going to be for 2024.
And Shanahan said today, Vish, that Brock may not heal right. Like there's some percent chance. I don't know if it's 5 or 10 or what percent, but there's some percentage chance that Brock doesn't play at all this year.
Right. And Larry, if they really believed in what they had with Trey Lance and they believed that he was going to have a huge season last year before they got hurt, guess what they would do? They wouldn't sign Sam Darnold for an incentive-laden deal that's going to allow him to compete for the job. They would have signed a true backup player, a guy that's just going to have to come in at a pinch, and they would have said, all right, Brock Purdy, we love what you did. You get healthy, and we're going back to our plan with Trey Lance and seeing what we have there. They are not committing to him. Why are they not committing to him? He only played 80 snaps, right? Shanahan said, I thought he was going to have a huge year. I thought he was going to play great. If you thought all of those things, Larry Krueger, you know what they would have said this offseason at the owners' meeting? They would have said, Brock played great. When he comes back, he earned the right to be the starting quarterback. Right now, he's hurt, and we don't know who he's going to be when he comes back, so we can't talk about that. We still had a plan with Trey Lance. We really believe in Trey Lance. He's going to be healthy this offseason, and we can't wait to go through with the plan that we had with him in 2022. Instead, what did they say? We still really love Trey Lance. Nothing's changed with Trey Lance. We still believe in Trey Lance. Oh, yeah, he's going to be splitting reps with Sam Darnold. Oh, yeah, him and Sam Darnold are going to compete for the job. And, they could all win the job this offseason. We don't know when Brock's coming back. But they left the door open for every single possibility. If they thought he was the guy still, Larry, they wouldn't have done that. I understand loving Brock. I understand thinking Brock is great. Brock is hurt. That's the reality. If Brock was healthy, Larry, all of this makes sense, right? Brock is not healthy. And they still didn't commit to the number 3 overall pick. And he played 80 snaps last year or 70 snaps or whatever it was, and he broke his ankle. Why didn't they commit to him?
They don't believe in him. And don't listen to what someone says. Listen and watch what they do. Don't listen to what they say. Watch what they do. People lie all the time for their own advantages, their own reasons. These are assets. If you're trying to divest yourself of an asset, you're not going to say anything bad about them, but they also don't want to lie. So they're not going to sit there and say a bunch of things and go on the record and, we really believe in this guy. I mean, all it would take is any of these little media sessions for any writer at all to just sit there and say, "Hey, Kyle, tell me exactly using particulars, what you love about Trey Lance as a quarterback." And then just shut the hell up. See what he says. And then watch him hem and haw and watch him, because I don't think he's ready to talk about that. I don't think he wants to talk about that. I don't think he can talk about that.
You're right. And Artur here makes a good point about quarterback depth and all of that. The reason it's a different conversation, Artur, is because Shanahan said very explicitly today that he only wants 2 quarterbacks. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, he referenced the fact that unless the rules are changed in the
Right.
NFL, that the third guy's got to be on the practice squad.
Sam Darnold's not. Look at Sam Darnold's contract. He's not released and going to the practice squad. I'll tell you that.
No.
He's got the 15th highest cap hit on the team. Sam Darnold is not going on the practice squad.
No, absolutely he's not. No way. I mean, that's the thing. And so then if you have Darnold and you have Lance and you have Purdy and you're only keeping 2 quarterbacks on your roster, and you just said you loved Darnold for a long time and that your evaluation of last year is that Purdy is the number 1 quarterback and he's the guy, and I agree with that, where does that leave Trey?
Right. And they didn't say,
Trey?
and they don't, and the issue is, right, like you and I can talk about this situation and give whatever opinions we want. It doesn't really matter. We can only go off what they say. And they didn't reaffirm anything in the last 2 days to say that, oh, shoot, no, you guys all have this wrong. We still 100% believe in him. He's going to be the guy. Just watch. They didn't do that. They could have done that because Purdy's hurt. That's the point. Purdy's hurt, so they have the best get out of jail free card to commit to Lance. But they never did that, Larry. And that brings me back to the original point that we just discussed 20 minutes ago. They don't care if Lance is the guy or not because they didn't trade up thinking about Lance. They traded up thinking about a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, and they think they've accomplished that with Brock Purdy, so it doesn't matter what happens with Trey Lance. That's the impression I get. I don't know if you see it differently.
No, that's exactly it. That was the commitment. The commitment was to the rookie quarterback. They now have a rookie quarterback. So, and there's plenty of people in the media that will give them a pass on Trey Lance because they landed Brock Purdy. I saw Mike Silver do it today on Twitter. He's like, "Hey man, they got a starting quarterback in the 7th round. He's on a rookie deal." It's like, so it doesn't matter that they swung and missed. But I also don't think they'll get nothing for Trey Lance because, once again, I mean, if you're one of these teams that wants a starting quarterback, I'm looking at a mock draft of the quarterbacks, and they say that the top 4 guys are going in the top 10, 7 to 12 picks. So what if you want a quarterback and your pick is after 12? Well, I mean, and where would Trey Lance be in this draft if you evaluated him? I personally like Trey Lance. I'd probably have Richardson 1 and Trey Lance 2. I like Trey Lance. Yeah, because I don't like these other guys. I think Stroud is overrated. I think Bryce Young is a product of Bama. I think Levis is totally one of these workout guys. I watched Kentucky. He sucked. That guy takes sacks left and right. Yeah, he's got a big arm. They lose and lose and lose.
So I can only go off of my evaluation before the draft. If you ask me that question based on how I looked at these players before the draft, now I'm wrong with my draft evaluation a lot, and I'm not saying that it's the correct evaluation, but based on what I have, I think that when I watched Trey Lance as a prospect and when I watched these guys, it's close between him and Richardson. I think I like Richardson more, but if we're going off a grading system or whatever, I would have given a higher grade just based on what I see on film to Bryce Young and CJ Stroud than what I gave to Trey Lance before the draft. That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
If we're
but I
going
mean,
there.
okay, but I mean, seriously, we're talking
It
about
doesn't matter. He's still a very talented player. That's
no,
the
but
point of the
my
discussion,
point on
right?
these guys is, same thing. People made the same evaluations of Matt Leinart. Matt Leinart stinks. It's hard to look at a great team that was totally dominant, that had weapons everywhere, that kicked ass, and be like, the quarterback stinks. It's hard.
Was that
It's
not
hard.
Trey Lance in the FCS at NDSU? Great team that kicked ass. Their offensive line dominated every opponent in front of them. I mean, they didn't throw the ball in the second half of the FCS championship game and ran all over James Madison because he was throwing it everywhere and anywhere against Ben DiNucci and James Madison in 2019.
I'm just saying, I love all of the Buckeye receivers in this draft. I think they've got the greatest collection of receivers in all of college football, and it's not even close. So I have a hard time of knowing if it was it the receivers that made the CJ Stroud look good, or was it Stroud that made them look good? I saw Stroud in the national semi. I thought, oh, he looked awesome. But I saw him earlier in the year. I didn't think he looked so good. Bryce Young. I don't know too many NFL quarterbacks that are
Right,
5'10" and 190 pounds. And Alabama quarterbacks, there's so much freaking talent on Alabama's team that I can't really evaluate him. Levis, I don't like at all. So, and yet he's got a howitzer. And if you watch him play catch on the sideline, you'd be like, oh my God, look at this guy. The one guy that I would absolutely be intrigued by is Anthony Richardson, just because he is 6'4", he is 245 pounds, and he is incredibly fast and dynamic and with a great arm. And he's got a skill set at quarterback that the league's never seen. I mean, this guy's Michael Vick fast, but he's 6'4", 250.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He's
So
built like a brick shit house.
yeah, I mean, this guy's
yeah.
Dante Culpepper and Michael Vick all turned into one.
Right.
And it's like, you know what? Richardson, I could not pass.
And he's a really natural thrower, right? Very live, loose arm. Like he flicks it out there. He's able to really manipulate slots. Like his lower half is a little bit of a mess at times, Larry, but his top half, like he has a very loose, live, natural arm, which is not necessarily something you see from guys that are usually this yoked up and can run, right? Like,
and he's a red zone nightmare. I mean, good luck defending this guy. This is one of the greatest athletes I've ever seen play the quarterback position. This guy, once you get him inside the 5-yard line, it's like, good luck stopping him. I mean, he's a great athlete. This is one of the greatest athletes that's ever come into the NFL at the quarterback position. And I would have a hard time passing him just because of that. But the other guys, Hendon Hooker's hurt all the time. Tanner McKee is not that mobile. Jaron Hall's short. Hayner's short. I mean, I like Clayton Tune a little bit. I think he's got some really good intangibles. I like Clayton Tune. But
I like DTR. Of the guys that we're talking about in the day 3 draft, I like DTR.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, people like Max Duggan, people like Stetson Bennett.
I don't like Hendon Hooker either. I've seen Hendon Hooker. Somebody mocked him, and this is the number 5 pick in the draft. I don't look at that one that way. I
like those receivers for Tennessee.
I've never seen more open people in an offense. It's a fake offense.
I mean, I like Hendon Hooker in like the 4th round. I'd take a shot on him in like the 4th round. But I mean, he's nothing close to Richardson as far as an athlete. And I don't know. To me, there's injuries there, so you got to wait for him. So there's a little delayed gratification, and he also had great receivers. And it just he's a hard guy to get a great evaluation of. But I mean, he was terrific in the SEC. There's no doubt. But my point is, Trey Lance, I think, in this draft would be a 1st-round pick. But I just 100%. Don't think he's going to go in the top 10. I think, my guess is and there's going to be a lot of teams. I would say about 5 or 6 of them between 10 and 25 that are going to need a quarterback, and they're going to be staring at Hendon Hooker or trading for Trey Lance. And
to be fair, this was kind of a scenario, I guess. Now, comparing these two players I'm not comparing these two players, okay? but just the Josh Rosen scenario, right? This is what was laid out in the 2019 draft. A lot of people were saying this because after Kyler Murray, depending on how you felt about, the Dwayne Haskins, the Drew Locks, the Daniel Jones is at the time. Remember, the conversation was, well, hey, a lot of people had a higher grade on Josh Rosen coming out in the 18 draft than they did after all these quarterbacks other than Kyler Murray in the 19 draft, right? That was a real conversation at the time. Now, Josh Rosen stinks. We know that 5 years later, but at that time, that was a genuine conversation, and he ended up getting moved for like the 48th pick in the draft. I think Drew Lock went 50th in that draft, and then Jones went 6th, and what's his name? Dwayne Haskins, excuse me, RIP Dwayne Haskins. He went 14th overall. So, for a guy with, when there were so many quarterbacks available and all of that, it was tough for teams to still make a move. And he was 1 year removed from a pretty rough rookie season. Now, I don't think Josh Rosen had the same buzz pre-draft as a prospect as Trey Lance. And Trey Lance certainly has not played as bad in the limited we've been able to see him as Josh Rosen was for that first year in Arizona, besides that first game against Seattle, week 4 or whatever, that I thought he played exceptionally well. The only good game of Josh Rosen's career. But ultimately, Larry, it's a very interesting conversation because how much has these 2 years changed that opinion, right? He was a guy that had to come in and people were hoping he would play. And if he played, they were hoping he would grow. He's pretty much the same player that they drafted right now. Is he not? What's changed with him since they drafted him? What's he gotten better at?
Well, I mean, I guarantee you, if you talk to Shanahan or Greasy, they would say, "Oh, he's better at this. He's better at
They
that."
asked Shanahan that last offseason, and he said he's got to play to get better.
Well, but I'm sure if we really got into a very measured discussion about nuances of the position that Trey has picked up, and so they would have something. I don't doubt that. But I also think Trey's, in that situation with Rosen had a slight frame and he wasn't mobile. So you're
Very
going to take
slow-footed.
you're going to take hits and you're not mobile. I mean, it just added up to injuries, and that's what he's been. He's been hurt. He's never thrown the ball anywhere close to the kind of thrower he showed at times at UCLA.
Yeah. Very,
As
very
far as
balanced, right?
Trey's different. Trey's
Smooth.
Trey's is legitimately a great kid. So that's why they keep saying he's a great kid, because he is great. He is a great kid. He comes from a really good family. He's really respectful. But I just think they look at him and they don't see a dynamic runner and they don't see a dynamic thrower. And when I did an interview with Rick Mueller's brother, Randy Mueller, who used to be the general manager of the Dolphins and Saints.
Right.
He's like, I'm not sure what Trey does really well. He doesn't get to the edges as a runner. He doesn't threaten the edges, and he doesn't really look really developed, accurate, or strong-armed as a thrower. He goes, he doesn't really impress me that much as a thrower, and he doesn't really impress me that much as a runner. So, and I've heard Mike Lombardi make the same claim. And these guys are, they represent what the scouting community believes.
Right.
They're really tied in. They're really knowledgeable. Mike Lombardi is basically, said a couple times, I don't get Trey Lance. He believes that Shanahan was kind of coerced into picking Lance and that it really wasn't his guy, that he wanted Mac Jones, and he's been on that for a couple of years now. We're never probably going to get the answer to that, but he's not a fan of Trey Lance.
I will say this. Larry, to be fair to Trey Lance, there's also been a lot of flashes of positive. Let's not pretend like the 4 games have been Nathan Peterman, right? The 4 games have been a mixture of good and bad, right? There's been a few positives, right? Even the Chicago game had a couple of
throws. It's not even really 4 games. It's really not
3.5. 3.5.
It's not even, I mean, think about it. The Bears game was half a game.
Right.
He didn't play well at all in the first. He's really, anybody who wants to talk pro Trey Lance is going to talk about the second half of the Texans game.
Right. There were a couple of nice throws in the Bears game, right? He had an important 3rd and 12 where he stepped up, climbed the pocket really well, and had really, really good low ball placement to Tyler Kroft. That was a great throw. The crosser to Ray McLeod, the deep over layering it over the cover 2 corner. That was a great throw. He's had a couple of throws here, right, in all of these games that make you say,
Danny Gray home run in the preseason.
right. Like that little slot fade he threw. He even threw one to Trent Sherfield. Then the little through route he threw to Trent Sherfield, coming back, holding, the whole defender and ripping it. Like, he's done some nice things in the little we've seen, right, Larry? It's not like it's just been all pathetic.
No. He's not Gio Carmazzi.
Right.
It's not been ugly.
I think where it becomes difficult for you and I to talk about, right, is because there's a disconnect with how the 49ers seem to feel about him, right?
They can't even call him a quarterback. They can't even call him a quarterback. He's a dual threat quarterback. He's not even that fast.
Okay, so here's a theory I have. I've been going back and watching a lot of him. I don't know if it's a lack of speed. That's why he's not getting to the edge. It's the indecisiveness as a runner. If you saw him at NDSU, he had a much better understanding how he's going to set up blocks, how he's going to hit the hole and all of that. I feel like he runs like he has no clue where he's going. He runs with zero urgency, and sometimes he's surprised with the speed of linebackers and defensive backs, the way they're catching him and all that. I mean, look at the first Arizona game, right? Have you ever seen a more indecisive runner take that many hits?
Well, I mean, how many times did they go for it on fourth down? He's trying to run over Isaiah Simmons on the goal line. I mean, that right there. To me, my first concern about Trey was this: I'm going to run over NFL front seven players. No, you're not. Okay. That was just a learning lesson. But more than anything, it's how he doesn't make the layups and how his ball is just a rocket. He throws rockets. And when he doesn't throw a spiral, that is literally the hardest ball to catch. The wobbly rocket.
Right. And it's a knuckleball.
And the drop rate, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they aren't good. What's his drop?
We'll go back to the Arizona game, right? There's a throw to Mo Sanu. I think it's like 3rd and 9. He's got Mo Sanu on an in route. It's actually a really, really great decision. He throws it with great timing, but he throws that wild, really, really wobbly knuckleball that's spinning. And Mo Sanu's got fantastic hands. He made his career really on his hands. Just flat out drops it. I think it was Mo Sanu, yeah. And it was because the ball was just spinning all weird. It was one of the funniest balls I've ever seen. In terms of how it was spinning. So there might be truth to that, but Larry, they don't talk about any of those things. They never pretend like those things are a problem, right? And that's where I'm confused on the disconnect, because nobody holds their feet into the fire on any of this, right? Nobody asked them, you keep telling us you love Trey Lance, you love Trey Lance, you love Trey Lance, then why did you change your plan? Why is he competing with Sam Darnold now? What changed between this year and last year? Why do you feel that you gave him the job last year and you shouldn't do that this year? They don't answer any of those questions. They're not asked any of those questions. You can look at Brock Purdy as the starter. You and I completely get it, but he's hurt right now. And it's like the only conclusion I keep coming to, Larry, and I know I've said it 3 or 4 times in this show, but the only conclusion I keep coming to is they've seen something in practice that just doesn't have them believing. That's why they're doing this.
You got to make the layups. When you've got a shallow cross in front of you, you got to hit that guy. You got to hit him every time. And they're seeing him miss badly on the layup throws.
It has to be in practice,
right? You got to make
right?
in your sleep. And that's what they're seeing.
That's what he's missing in practice, right? Is that what it is? He's missing him in practice?
Well, there's no doubt he's missing him in practice. I mean, it's not like he's a disaster in practice, but he'll throw the layup, 5-yard pass in the flat. He'll throw that 3 times on the hands and 2 times 5 feet above the receiver. I've seen him hit guys in other drills where it's literally that, I'm looking the other way and you get hit by the ball and it was supposed to be an out pattern. So I like Trey as a guy. I like his profile as a prospect. But Shanahan called his own bluff when he drafted him. He basically said, you know what? I've never developed a young quarterback. This is a young quarterback needs developing. I'm going to draft him because he's got the highest upside. But he can't develop him. He's not. I don't think Shanahan is a quarterback whisperer. I don't think Shanahan's a quarterback developer. I think Shanahan's a genius play caller. and he's a good enough. And the Niners have surrounded their quarterback now with some premier weapons. Some of the best weapons in the entire league are on this offense, or in this offense. So that's what I think Shanahan's genius is. He's a ruthless play caller who's got an offense that a play action game that puts tons of pressure on a defense, and he can isolate players in space and just crush them. But as far as he can take a young quarterback from A to B to C to D and develop them along the way, where's he done it? He hasn't done it. And he called his own bluff by drafting a player that needed his development, and he can't develop him. And so now it's like, all right, do we take the time to develop him? No, we don't need to. We got Brock Purdy.
That's the latter point, right? I think that that's actually a better point, in fact, Krug, than the one I've been making that last one. It's not even that they've lost belief perhaps in him as a long-term answer, Larry. I think they no longer care about developing him anymore because they think they've found the rookie contract solution, which goes back to the original thing, right? What has changed, Larry? It's simple. All they wanted when they traded up to 3 was a quarterback on a rookie contract.
Yep.
Never did they care if it was Trey Lance, if it was Mac Jones, if it was Brock Purdy, if it was Larry Krueger, if it was any of these guys. They don't care about who the name is. That's all they want is the contract. And I think that's the point that we learned from their conversation in the owners' meeting. If there's one takeaway, right, they don't care who the quarterback is at all. They just want that quarterback to be on a rookie deal to be able to help with the entire balance of their team. That's it.
That's what they're committed to. What are they committed to? They're committed to the rookie quarterback on a rookie deal so they can build the rest of their roster out. But as far as Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, I don't think it really matters to them. And that's why I start to believe that maybe Shanahan and Lynch did like Mac Jones, because Mac Jones, the ball came out on time with accuracy. He ran the system. Maybe they just felt like he kind of was like a Jimmy 2.0, but with better accuracy and a little bit better timing and touch, a little bit smarter, probably a lot smarter.
Yeah, he is, but he's got better feet too. He's
better
a
feet,
bit more elusive in the pocket.
So they probably looked at him and said, "Hey, this guy can do it." Well, yeah, Lance has more upside, but this guy can do it. And I just think that they got pressured into Lance.
I don't know if they got pressured, Larry. I think they just got blown away when they went up there and continued to evaluate Lance. I think it was more about Lance, the person, blowing them away.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, I think and then that goes back to the stuff about quarterbacks, right? Like, you can't fall in love with the person. You have to evaluate the player for what it was. It sounds like, I mean, they're clearly smitten with the person, Larry, right? That's the only thing they ever mentioned about him. Hey, how's Trey Lance? Oh, we love Trey.
Oh, what a kidding me? Kid. Man of the year.
Right.
This guy, Walter Payton Award. I mean, this guy. I mean, seriously, they can go out of their way to talk about how his makeup is off the charts while saying zero about his throwing, his accuracy, his touch, his rhythm, his footwork, his release, his arm strength, his zero on any of his quarterback traits. But they're jumping over each other to be like, oh, the makeup on this kid is incredible, because that's the area where you can glow. You can be glowing about him and you're not lying. They don't want to lie.
So.
They don't want to lie.
I think so. Because listen to how they talk about Brock. Listen to how he talked about Sam Darnold today.
Right. They can compliment guys when they want to.
Yeah. Green Glassful says, anyone else excuse me. Sorry about that. Appreciate the donation. He says, anyone else sick of the high ceiling fallacy?
Yeah, I am. I can't tell you the number of morons that I've talked to in the last month who are just, well, yeah, they're winning with Brock, but, can they win it all? What? You're 8-0. You were 8-0, and you won 2 playoff games, and you may have been able to beat the Eagles in their place, but you lost them. So now we won't know.
So I'll say
this idea that we're critiquing Brock Purdy. Yeah, he's winning, but his upside is limited and his size and you're winning. Stop questioning how you're winning. It is really fucking hard to win in the NFL. Really hard. Respect that. You got a guy who's winning in the NFL. Respect that. Don't sit there and take it for granted and start critiquing it. Respect how hard it is to win.
I will say, Krug, I don't think the ceiling necessarily matters as long as his contract is what it is. He's making $800,000. He's a steal at his price right now with how he's playing. That's it.
No,
That's
but the high
much
ceiling fallacy is about, well, you got to go with Trey because Trey's got more high ceiling.
It's what
That's
what
a scout.
it,
That's a scout steal.
It turns into a conversation of
that.
It turns into a conversation of how attainable you think that ceiling is. And if the 49ers thought Trey Lance's ceiling was very, very attainable very quickly, they would just start him this year with Brock Purdy hurt, would they not? Because they would think that, oh, if we give Trey 3-4 games, Trey's going to become an absolute stud. That's what we thought he was going to be in 2022. But they're not doing that. They're having him compete with Sam Darnold.
There's an old saying, don't turn down good in pursuit of awesome. You have good. Be happy. You know what I mean? You have a good quarterback. Be happy. Don't sit there and be like, I need somebody awesome. Got to have somebody awesome. Okay, but you may just get rid of a good quarterback for your pursuit of awesome.
Green Glassful, appreciate the donation again, says Trey truthers are unhinged with ulterior motives. What I will say is there's a level of toxicity to the entire portions of the fan base, I would say, that are so dug in on one guy needs to be the guy, one guy doesn't need to be the guy, one guy needs to be the guy. I don't operate on my feelings on any of these guys. I just operate on what are the 49ers telling us. And right now they've told us and they've made it quite clear. Brock Purdy is the guy. We don't know when he's going to be healthy, but when he's healthy, he's the guy. They were blown away with how he played last year, right? Blown away. It's clear they were blown away. Whether you were blown away, whether I was blown away, doesn't matter. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were clearly blown away. Which now leaves us with Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has a clearly incentive-laden contract. It's clear that he's here to compete for something more than just be the quarterback 3 and just be insurance in case Brock Purdy doesn't come back at the beginning of the season, or for Trey Lance, he's going to get an opportunity to be the starter until Brock Purdy comes back. As is Trey Lance, unless he gets traded, as Krueger is predicting, which is also a possibility. And that's pretty much it with the quarterback situation. I think the entire fan base, this person, that person, I think they're all unhinged a little bit. Green Glassful. I know I never said you were anti-Trey either. Yeah.
Why does everybody have to have an agenda? Why can't
they want to be right, Krug? It's that simple.
Yeah, but why do you got to have an agenda? I have no agenda. Here's my agenda.
Because you're not bought in on a take.
I want to win. I want to win.
You love
That's my agenda.
Wait, Krug. The difference is you're not bought into a take because you love Trey Lance before the draft and you love Brock Purdy and you've been the Brock Purdy guy. A lot of these people are bought into a take. So they're just, trying to justify that take, I think.
That's awesome.
And it's more about them being right.
But I mean, if you're a Niner content creator, what are you doing here if you're not rooting for the Niners? I mean, if you're a Niner content creator, why do you have to have an agenda? I have no agenda. Here's the only agenda I have is I want to see them win that 6th Lombardi. I don't care who they win it with. They could win it with you at quarterback. They could bring back Jim. They could bring back Jim
Plunkett.
Plunkett.
You with me at quarterback?
Yeah. If you win,
I'll throw that jet pass. 10, 11 times a game. Drop it off to Debo.
I don't care who the quarterback is, and I really don't want to care about the quarterback if you're winning games. These people that are just so upset because they're like, why is there so much negativity on Brock Purdy? He's unfreaking defeated. Why are people ripping him? You're not a Niner fan if you're ripping him. If you're ripping Brock Purdy, you're not a Niner fan. You're some person parading as a Niner fan who has some kind of alternate agenda. And if you want to have an alternate agenda, go for it. But then guys like me are going to call out your alternate agenda because you're not about winning. I'm about winning. you want to win? Brock Purdy won. I'm
You
about
want
winning.
winners.
I'm about winning.
Winners.
That's my agenda.
I want winners.
I don't need.
Can't coach
I
with
don't.
them. Can't.
I can't. I can't. I don't want the Niners to win. I want the Niners to win with the quarterback I want them to win with. What? So then what? You're going to handicap Brock Purdy like he's got all kinds of problems, despite the fact he's undefeated. And you're going to sing Trey Lance's praises like he's absolutely this far away from being Mahomes. I mean, based on what? Talking endlessly about the second half against the Texans? Really? Sad. It's really sad. I mean, it just shows there's a lot of people out there that really they're not really football people. They're not about winning football games. They've got some other agenda. They're trying to advance some other cause. They don't want to tell you what it is, but they obviously, if you're okay with winning, you got a quarterback that's winning. So anybody who's anti-Brock Purdy, got to wonder about them. Got to really wonder about them. Why are you anti-Brock Purdy? Why? Too short? Too this? Too that? Doesn't have the right whatever that you're looking for? He's winning games.
I want to answer a couple of questions, but I actually do have one concern about Brock Purdy that I think will be a great discussion right after we answer these questions that I want to add to it. It has nothing to do with him on the field, actually, and it has everything to do with his injury, Krug. And I actually want to talk about that because I feel like so much of it is just, hey, he's going to come back and he's going to be the guy. I'm a little bit worried about the guy having to rehab this entire offseason, Krug, and then having to, then come back in the middle of the season or whenever he comes back. I think he's in kind of a difficult position himself. We'll talk about that, though. Gaiman Brown, appreciate the donation. He says, our receipt, by the way, Krug, I love the rant. I want winners as well. You did Mike Singletary very proud. Physical with an F. Come on.
Let's win games and not worry about are you winning with the quarterback that you want to win with? You're winning. You're winning games. Just be happy. Bobby McFerrin.
Candid convo. Our receivers do not have first-rate hands. Only sure-handed contested catcher is our TE. Tight end. Trey has the power to throw. Come on, man. To throw wet-soaked heavy ball.
It's true. I mean, he's right. He's right. If Trey Lance throws, Brock throws a really easy to catch ball, puts it on the hands, really perfect, soft, boom. Trey throws high speed wobbles in a very heavy, hard to catch football. There's no doubt. That's not me saying it. That's a fact. I could get Brandon Ayuk on here. He'd tell you. I could get Debo in here. He would describe it. Jawan Jennings can talk all about it. These guys that know the difference between a catchable ball and a really difficult to catch ball could tell you, any receiver could tell you. That's a major part of it. Yeah. If Trey is going to be their guy, they needed to emphasize ball skills. Go get Chris Carter. Go get Odell Beckham. Go get, the guy, go get Jahan Dotson, who just went to the Commanders last year. Go get those guys that absolutely pluck the ball with their hands and have unbelievable ball skills, because that's the kind of receiver the only kind of receiver that's really going to have consistent success throwing, catching passes from a guy who throws that heavy of a football.
I will say this. They don't throw a lot of contested passes as part of their offense, right? They're not just lining up and saying if Debo and Ayuk are in one-on-one coverage on the outside. Like the Bengals, for example, right? If you're in single high and you see any sort of press look on Jamar Chase, they're just going to throw it up to Jamar Chase. It doesn't matter what the play was called, whatever. Burrow's going to alert it, and they're going up top to Jamar Chase. The Niners offense doesn't necessarily operate that way either, right, Crew? Everything is timing-based. Everything is disciplined. Everything is within structure and within the offense. And I will say, to defend these receivers, Larry, I do think both Ayuk and Debo do catch the ball away from their frame with their hands. They both are hands catchers 100%. It's a difficult ball to catch. I do think Debo has his concentration drops. Ayuk has his concentration drops. Even Kittle has his concentration drops. So Gaiman does 100% have the point there. It's not like these guys are, DeAndre Hopkins, where they don't drop a pass the entire season. But at the same time, I do think both Debo and Ayuk, it's underrated how they extend outside of their frame to catch the football. In Debo's case, he just has very short arms. So he doesn't catch the ball away from his frame too much, but we've seen him, go up and get the ball when he's had to. I mean, he did it for Trey Lance in that Arizona game, right? Trey Lance threw him kind of a 50-50 on an off schedule, and Debo went up and got it. And then we've seen the same thing from Brandon Ayuk. It's just their offense also, and perhaps maybe it would be easier for Trey Lance, right? Larry, how hard is it for a young quarterback to come in? The Niners are so condensed all the time. Everything's from condensed splits because they want to get their run game going. It's hard for a quarterback because you don't always get a clear picture of what's going on. Maybe it would be easier for Trey Lance if he played in an offense where everything was spread out. He can see what the defense is lined up in. He knows quicker where to go with the ball. The throws near the outside are a little bit less risky, right? Because there's less traffic, and he can throw 50-50 ball, stuff like that. Maybe that would help him. Gaiman, that's a very interesting point too. I don't want to discount that, but it is a very, very nuanced and complicated conversation. Thank you for the donation, man. 2-Point Offense says they never loved Trey. They had to give him the job. Probably felt fortunate when he went down. It's clear he's not a good NFL quarterback. Need to trade him. Wow, that's harsh.
No, it's not clear. It's not clear because he hasn't played. Right now, there's some mystery, but that's why I actually think that the mystery is why they can trade him. If he played, there would be no mystery. I think they'd have a hard time trading him. The fact that there is some mystery about Trey makes it so I think they can trade him.
Yeah, and I think that Krug, as we've been talking more and more, I think that the point you're making is the more important point. They don't know what he is, and now that I think about it, Larry, I don't know if they've necessarily given up on what he can be. I think they've just given up on developing him to what he can be. I think that's what it is. I don't think they want to participate in that process with the Win Now team. I think John Lynch said as much in his combine presser, and I think that that's been given some more clarity. You were on it right away then, and you took a lot of shade for saying that you thought he was talking like a guy that was trading him, but it feels like they've stayed consistent with that path. And I think ultimately, Larry, if there's one conclusion anybody who's watching the show that can take away, it's the conclusion that you and I drew in the middle of the show, that ultimately it's not about Trey Lance, it's not about Brock Purdy, it's about having a quarterback on a rookie contract. And they believe they found that with Brock Purdy. Therefore, that's where the sunk cost comes in with Trey Lance, because they don't think they need to, go through the extended process of developing him again. They're going to give him the opportunity this offseason, right? If he magically comes back better and beats out Sam Darnold, he gets the opportunity, but they're not going to just give him the job and try to build him up the way they did last year. They've made that clear, because if they were, he would be the starter right now with Brock Purdy hurt. Shanahan
said it today. He said last year Trey was given first team reps. This year, he suggested he will split and compete for those reps with Sam Darnold. So quite a bit different. He basically admitted that last year it wasn't a competition. It was Trey's job. They handed it to him. He got hurt. But what's really disingenuous is we think Trey would have had an incredible year. But then we brought in Sam Darnold this year.
Right. If you thought he was going to have an incredible year, then why wouldn't you just resume that now that Brock Purdy's hurt? That's what I'm asking, right? That's the question.
It's so obvious they're going to trade him. I mean, to me, it's just obvious. And it's like they're not even that smooth about it. It'll be interesting to see what they can get. It probably won't matter that they're not smooth, because the Rand Carthons of the world are desperate. And there'll be somebody who will give you something. And I think that they're willing to probably take, a late first or an early second and a player, something like that. And I think that's a very palatable price for the Rand Carthons of the world, guys who are first-year GMs trying to establish a new program. If you gave the 49ers whatever their high second-round pick is, and a corner like the kid from McCreary or McCready or whatever they have in Tennessee, Niners would probably give you Trey Lance for that. That'll be my guess.
What about the corner that they picked in the first round that has unlimited physical talent, but he's gotten hurt twice?
Who's that?
Caleb Farley.
I think he's been hurt a lot. I think I'd want a
Since
little bit more.
college.
Yeah.
But if we're talking talent, Larry, there's some special physical qualities and attributes to Caleb Farley. David Velez, appreciate the donation. Um, it it doesn't seem like you can beat a Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, etc. in the Super Bowl with a Brock Purdy type quarterback. NFC Championship game, sure. For a Super Bowl win, you need a star unless you've got a top 5 all-time defense.
Well, they already showed they're going to have a top 5 all-time defense. That's what they're committed to. That's what they're going to spend their money on, and that's what it's going to be. I mean, do they want Mahomes? Yeah, they want Mahomes. But I think they understand that Brock Purdy and a great run game and a great defense is probably enough for them to compete for a title. If they could do better, they will. But I think they're content to go with that.
Yeah, I actually think David makes a very, very real point. Like, I think this is real, but it's clear the 49ers don't look at it that way. They don't. And so we'll find out if they're right or not. It's not necessarily, I mean, it is kind of our place to give our opinion on it, but whatever happens, it seems the 49ers seem to think that Larry, it's not clear the way they've been talking about him. They think they have the star.
They think they've got a really good quarterback in Purdy, and they probably do. They probably do. I mean, come on.
Right, and
he played very well this year. Now, people want to say, well, it was because of McCaffrey or whatever. I don't.
They don't believe that. Whatever it is, Larry, I think the most important thing is we can argue about Purdy all day. And I think that there's fair arguments both sides. I'm willing to listen to them. It's good discussion. But ultimately, Larry, the 49ers think they have a star in him. They've made that clear, I think, over the last 2 days. And we haven't even gotten to the Ian. We've been going so long about this. But somehow, Larry, we haven't even talked about some of the Ian Rappaport stuff, right? Like, Ian Rappaport hasn't even mentioned Trey Lance. And when he mentions Trey Lance, he's like, I don't think that's a thing. Like, Ian Rappaport doesn't his job isn't to give opinions. He tells you what he's hearing.
And what did he say? I mean, he basically said that Darnold may be the starter. Unless he felt like that was the headline that would get more attention. I don't know, but he didn't.
I don't think.
He didn't say anything about Trey Lance.
Look, Larry. I don't think he says
his thing was if Trey Lance continues on the path that he's on, then something like that, then Sam Darnold could be the starter.
Right. He said that, right?
So somebody told Ian Rappaport is not the kind of guy who's going to come out and say anything negative about any player. So for him to say, well, if Lance follows the trajectory, I think it's the trajectory that he's on, then Sam Darnold will be the starter come week 1. Well, what trajectory is that?
He's the second person to say that, though. Larry, he's the second person to say that. When they signed Darnold, Greg Papa said the same thing. Both of those people aren't saying that thing unless they're hearing something that would make them say that. That's all I got to say on that. I have a difference of opinion, in fact, from both of these people on this thing. But my opinion, frankly, doesn't matter because both of those two people are way too connected, where if they're saying something like that, Larry, they think there's a lot of credence to it. Whether we want to believe it, we want to talk about it, agree about it or not, it doesn't necessarily matter because those two guys are saying that for a reason. David Velez, appreciate the donation, my friend. He says, people also forget there's a chance Brock comes back with a stronger arm than before the surgery. That could be all the difference. True. Definitely fair.
I don't know that that's the case because it wasn't Tommy John. It wasn't like he had a cadavered ligament. The guys who come back from elbow surgery with better velocity are guys that have elbow ligament replacement surgery. That's not the surgery he had. So I don't know about that.
Gaiman Brown, appreciate the donation. He says, at David Velez is speaking facts. I watched a baseball documentary from 93 Rookie of the Year when an accident miraculously gives the boy an incredible, powerful pitching arm. Brock Purdy is now too easy. I love it. That's a great comment, Gaiman Brown. Battle Beast 19 says, what the hell? He says, what the hell? I'm not going to, use your language there, Battle Beast 19. Children might be watching this show, But
Hopefully
he says, what the hell? What the hell is this win now BS? Where's the ring with Brock Purdy?
What? That's a lame take. He went 8-0. You lost because his arm got ripped out in the NFC Championship game. God, that's just stubborn. And that's stupidity. I mean, I hate to say that. I hate to call somebody stupid, but I mean, come on. That's just stupidity. He played 1 year. He was a rookie quarterback. They got one win away from the Super Bowl. That's a lame
Yeah,
take.
it's
That's a lame
unfair.
take.
It's unfair. It's
I mean,
unfair. I don't
seriously,
know.
that is the equivalent. And I made jokes about this a couple weeks ago on the show, but I might as well bring it up again here. That is like standing outside of a nursery and heckling the newborn babies. Ah, you're all wrapped up. None of you guys can even crawl. You can't even walk. Some of you are drooling. You guys can't do shit. They're newborns, asshole. I mean, seriously. Come on, man. You're going to talk trash to a rookie quarterback who went to the NFC Championship game off the bench?
I gotta say, Larry, you bring it every show. You are one of the greatest I think I've seen at doing this by far. But this is a different level. You've come in, you've made this your Super Bowl. Like, this is an all-time Larry Krueger performance, an all-time Larry Krueger show. Give yourself a pat on the back, my friend. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Andre Rodriguez says people copy-paste Grant's takes, calling him Jimmy 2. I think he's talking about Purdy, calling him Jimmy 2.0 takes catch like fire. We saw Brock Purdy in the playoffs as a rookie. Injury concerns legit not paying it. Like, talking about Garoppolo is, I guess, whatever. Sure, you can say
Why
that.
Is he Jimmy
they don't
2.0?
make the same money. They don't make the same money, so it doesn't matter.
What do they even have in common? What do they really have in common?
Quick release.
Garoppolo's got a way quicker release.
Quicker release.
They're not the same guy. They're not the same guy.
Different style players, too.
It's sad. I mean, when you tell me you see the same thing with Jimmy as you see with Brock, that just tells me that you don't know football. There's nobody who knows football that says that Jimmy and Brock are the same.
No.
Jay Mill's got the best one. Larry needs a brisket sandwich from Pig and a Pickle. Thank you, Jay Mill.
Andre Rodriguez, appreciate the donation. He says Trey has a chance to earn it. If he wins it, he's quarterback one. Maybe. Yeah, I think so. I think he's got a chance. Larry thinks he's going to be moved.
I don't think he has a chance. I don't think he's going to be in camp. I think he's going to be in camp in Nashville.
Yeah, and I think he's still got a chance in all of that. I think there's complete credence to that, Larry. I don't think he's going to get traded in the draft. You do. But let's pretend that he doesn't get traded, Larry. I do think he has a chance, but something's clearly not the same with him, right? Like, whether he has a chance or not, they haven't fully embraced in giving him the opportunity. They're giving him a chance to compete, which is completely different from where we were a year ago. And it took 80 snaps to change that. So clearly, I just keep going back to that one thing, Krug, and it's probably the 5th different time I'm staying in on the show. They just wanted a quarterback on the rookie contract. They think they've found it, so they don't think they need to go through the lumps of developing Lance. If he's really good this offseason and he comes out and kills it, if he gets a chance to play, then so be it. But if he's not, we'll go with Sam Darnold and Purdy comes back and we still have our rookie quarterback on a rookie contract. That's our starter. To me, that's loud and clear their plan. They're keeping the door open for Trey. If he comes back this offseason, he's got a shot, maybe, but they're not opening it up for Trey to be the guy.
Trey is that kitchen remodel you're going to do. You just talk about forever. Yeah, we're gonna do a kitchen remodel, man. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna tear everything out and this and that. You don't ever do it. Trey's that awesome vacation that you're always gonna take that you never take. Yeah, we're gonna go here. We're gonna go to Fiji, and it's gonna be freaking awesome. And did you go? No, didn't go. Never quite got there. That's what the Niners love. The idea of Trey, great kid, awesome athlete. High-end everything, smart, athletic, rookie deal. They love the idea of Trey, but they're not committed to the work to make Trey.
Right.
To make Trey Mahomes.
I think that's the most important thing, Larry. I don't think I
love the
think
idea of it.
when we started the show, Larry, so much of the conversation, and I think even I made the point, and I would say that it's a little bit more fluid because it's made more sense to me as this conversation has been going on. I don't think they're soured on like Trey's long-term potential and all of that. They're soured on going through the process of developing him. They don't want to do
And
that.
taking the losses and dealing with and you know why? Because I think that when they drafted Trey, they had been to the Super Bowl recently and they had equity. But now I think Dr. John York and Jed and Denise, now they're not looking at John and Kyle quite the same way. They're not made men yet. Like if they had been a Super Bowl winner, let's say they beat the Chiefs a couple years ago, they're riding with Trey. They got the hey man, Super Bowl 19, baby, right there. I got the ring.
I think there's a
So
different
yeah, I
level
can
of
wait.
desperation.
You guys all have to wait. You guys suck it because I'm going with the long-term quarterback, and guess what? I got the ring. So you guys just ride with it. But they don't have the ring. And so now it's like, well, wait a second. We got to get the ring. Oh man. So now it's like, let's make decisions that result in us getting the ring. And so now they're looking at Brock and Trey and going, who's more likely to get us the ring? Oh, well, Brock's playing better in the present, and we don't know about the future, but Trey might be better in the future, but we don't. Who cares about that? I'm taking the bird in hand. I'm taking that because Brock's the bird in hand.
Yeah.
And I got to win. And Denise and John, man, they're looking at us like, hey, I don't know about you
I think
guys.
Shanahan himself is feeling it. He's probably pissed. They've been to 3 out of 4 NFC Championship games. He's probably chomping at the bit to get to the Super Bowl. And I think that this is a great segue to this comment from Casey Cold. Appreciate the donation as always. He said they basically soured on Trey because of a monsoon and Purdy played well. Makes all the sense in the world. They love to settle for much less SMH. I think Krueger and I, as we've been talking about it, it's not that they've soured on Trey. They've soured on the idea of developing Trey because, again, they were not committed to Trey Lance specifically from the beginning. They were just committed to the idea of a quarterback on a rookie contract. Once you talk about this conversation like that, every single move that they have made now makes sense.
Yep.
Their entire process doesn't make sense unless you embrace the idea that all they wanted was a quarterback on a rookie deal. It wasn't about Trey Lance. It wasn't about Brock Purdy. It wasn't about this guy, that guy, whatever. They just wanted a quarterback on a rookie deal that was good enough to fit in with this roster. They didn't want him to be a star. They didn't want him to be this. They didn't want him to be that. They just wanted to be on a rookie contract and fit within this roster, Larry. And Purdy solved that problem for them. They think he did at least. And so therefore, it sounds like they're open to the idea of Lance, but they're not open to the idea of doing what they did last year, which is opening it up and trying to develop him, right? They're just like, okay, if he comes back this offseason and he's great, cool. We use the number 3 overall pick on him and all of that is fantastic, right? If he doesn't, okay, we have Sam Darnold until Purdy comes back. That's what their outlook seems to be. It seems to be very clear now.
And I think they're just going to play it real here we are. We got our guy. They'll let it be known in the private conversations with general managers. Hey, if you want our guy, he's available. But man, don't come knocking on our door with a 4th round pick. You better have something in the top 50. I bet you anything they're saying that because they, and then it comes down to it. Well, I don't have a pick in the top 50 I want to give, but I'll give you this player in a top. Watch, they're going to say, we've got a great situation at quarterback. We don't need to trade anybody, but then they will wind up trading him and they wind up and then all of a sudden they'll be like, wow, who knew that this was their price? Like, I don't think they know their price because I think their price is fluid. All they really know is that they're committed to the rookie quarterback. They've got 2 of them. So now they're just hoping to get one of them, the one that's played well, healthy. And then they'll sit there and field offers. And if they get no offers, they'll stay with Trey. But the way the NFL is, they will get offers. And they'll move them. I'm very convinced.
Battle Beast 19 says, Purdy sucks. Watching get beat by the NFC North.
He's undefeated. He's undefeated. He's never lost. My God. Undefeated. 13 touchdowns, 4 picks. The team scored 32 points a game with him. They didn't score 32 points a game with Trey. They didn't score 32 points a game with Jimmy. They didn't score 32 points a game with Hoyer. They didn't score 32 points a game with Beathard. Do you see what I'm saying? Niners were 9-29 under Shanahan with all quarterbacks not named Garoppolo pre-Purdy. So what are we talking about? Don't tell me anybody can win in this offense. Anybody tried to win in this offense and anybody lost a lot. Purdy's good. And if you don't want to give him his, that's on you. It's not on him. It's on you.
Impulsive says, looking at Sam Darnold tape, unless he shows Jameis Winston level turnover habits, I actually think he has the best arm on the roster. He also runs ROs. I think he's
RPOs.
I think he's saying read option. So basically he's saying he has the ability to contribute on his own read plays. Yeah, he does. He's athletic. He can do that. He's not necessarily a runner. He's really, really good. I don't know if he's really good.
But if he's proven anything, it's that he stinks. I mean, let's be honest.
He can get outside the pocket, though.
If you want to say, hey, I'm Kyle Shanahan and I really see things in him, fine. You can be Kyle Shanahan and you can see what you see. But if you're pointing to actual games and film and stats and evidence, he sucks.
But Impulsive isn't doing that, right? He's not talking about who he is. We're talking, the Darnold discussion is solely about physical traits at this point, similar to the Lance discussion. The only difference is we have a 55-game sample size with Lance. Now, the one thing I will say in regards to Darnold is I don't know how successful a lot of different quarterbacks are if you put them in Darnold's situation. I think a lot of people would stink in that situation, and Darnold is one of a lot of people. That means he's not a special player. That's why he's on his third team in 5 years, right? He's not a special player. But in terms of traits, like we saw Shanahan describe it today, they clearly have something that enamors them. And he does have an ability to throw the ball that's quite impressive. This guy is right. He is, he's shown some high-level throws that, not every quarterback is physically capable of making. Now, he's done it with zero consistency. He panics under pressure. He's a very conservative decision maker. He's an interesting guy. We'll see what happens for him this offseason. But, yeah, it's not based on – Gaiman Brown says, wow, this is really appreciate the donation, Gaiman. You're too kind. Jimmy G, after 5 games, how did that turn out? We are crowning Brock Purdy after 8 games and washing Sam Sins after 5 mediocre games and 61 awful games. Offseason speculation. Trey is bathwater after 4 games.
Well, first of all,
that bathwater was a nice touch to it.
mean, Jimmy did play really well in those 5 games. They didn't have to give him a big-time contract. But they were dreaming the dream, and they're dreaming the dream. So, partly on Brock Purdy as well. I'll give you that. But 8 games, they were 8. It was down the stretch it wasn't like throwaway game. The Jimmy thing was throwaway. The season was done. The team was going nowhere, and he in garbage time. Those were 5 garbage time games. Brock Purdy wasn't garbage time. Brock Purdy went up, beat Seattle on the road. When was the last time Niners beat Seattle on the road? They don't do that often. He beat Washington. He beat Tampa. He beat Miami. He beat some really decent defenses. Then he beat Seattle again in the playoffs. Then he beat Dallas. And who knows? Maybe he would have beaten Philly in Philly. We're not going to know the answer to that. But I don't even think anybody's crowning Brock Purdy. The Niners are saying that that he's their best quarterback.
Gaiman, that's
get off my lawn.
Okay, so let's talk about Brock Purdy now, and then we'll end the show right here because I know you got to go. You have on the Pig in the Pickle Krug show. Everybody should go right there after this because Krug is talking to the man Eric Crocker, and they're probably going to continue this discussion. Krug's already spicy. He's probably going to be extra spicy on the Krug show. Pig in the Pickle, probably a little less unfiltered. This is the Vish Kumaran show is a children-friendly show. The Krug show, on the other hand, Larry loves being lazy with those F-bombs and yeah. But I am getting a little bit worried about Purdy, Krug, and it's with the injury. When have we seen, a quarterback? Obviously, we know you and I have talked about it in the past, right? Offseason for players year one to year two is huge. Why? Because typically before year one offseason, you spend half the offseason prepping for the draft, not prepping for the season. So you have an abbreviated offseason. You go in through the season, you understand the attrition, what it does to your body, all of that. And then you really train for the season in your second season, right? Brock Purdy is not going to have that offseason. He's going to be rehabbing the entire time. The injury is exceptionally serious, right? Mike Silver called it severe after the injury. Cam Inman said it was a career-saving surgery, right? These are two people on the 49ers beat that said that about him, right? So we're describing a very serious injury. We're describing a player that's not rehabbing or not training the entire offseason. He's rehabbing. And now, Larry, he's going to go through this entire offseason. He's going to have to come back. And it sounds like they're expecting him to come back and ultimately play. And we know he played at a very, very high level last year, Krug, right? Clearly he did. Whether you think it or I think it, the 49ers think it. They've made that clear, right? Like that is what it is. We don't need to discuss that further than it's clear he played at a high level. The stats show it, and the 49ers clearly think it. But are
They
you not
scored
worried?
32 points a
Right,
game.
right. Are you not worried, Krug, that they're putting a little too much pressure on him to return from this injury and have to come back and play quickly? We saw what happened with RG3. Now, the circumstances were a little different because RG3 put that pressure on himself, right? His rookie year coincided with the year Adrian Peterson came back and ran for 2,097 yards and won the MVP. Basically 8 months removed from his ACL injury. RG3 tried to do the same thing. Now, people also speculate that had to do with Kirk Cousins, who played very, very well at the end of his rookie season at the one game he played. So RG3 didn't want to give that job up because obviously we know the Shanahans love Kirk Cousins, and that entire tree of coaches who are in Washington love Kirk Cousins. But are you not a little bit worried that, Lynch is talking about him coming back July 28th? Shanahan, before he even got before he even got his second opinion in his end of the season presser, was already saying that it's just a 6-month recovery. He's going to be throwing in 3 months. We expect him to be ready for camp. It took an extended period of time for the swelling to go down for him to ultimately get the surgery. That was very close with when free agency started. I thought the timing was a little suspicious. Are you worried that the 49ers are putting too much pressure right now on Brock Purdy to have to come back? And is it fair for us to expect Brock Purdy to come back here in 2024, coming off of a very serious injury, having to go through an entire offseason of rehab instead of being able to train and work on his game with his teammates, get the timing down, get comfortable with this offense, get all the offseason first-team reps that he would need? Are you worried about all of these things factoring into him in 2024 or 2023? Because I am, Larry. I think we're starting to set a ridiculous and unfair expectation on a player who I think has, real talent. He's clearly a, really, really talented player that they seem to really like. He played great for 8 games, but the level of severity to the injury, Larry, has me a little bit worried, especially given that the 49ers seem to be pushing that timetable on him, right? Like Brock Purdy hasn't even really talked about it. And Brock Purdy was getting a second opinion. And in his end of the season presser, Kyle Shanahan was already talking about he's going to be back in 6 months for the start of camp. The cool thing is he'll be throwing after 3 months and all of that. Are you worried at all about the way they're handling this with Brock Purdy, specifically in terms of Brock Purdy's long-term future?
I mean, there's definite expectations, but it is what it is. It's just, this is what happens when you're the quarterback of a football team that's inside of their Super Bowl window, that's got, Super Bowl aspirations. Yeah, I haven't seen too many injuries like that. And I've been watching football for, decades. I don't know that I've seen a quarterback go to accelerate his arm forward, and as he's accelerating his hand, somebody's ripping it back, and he's like forcing his elbows. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, there should be a lot of concern because their standards are that they're going to win the Super Bowl. Their expectations are that they're going to compete for Super Bowls, and they may not have their guy.
Well, the expectations are that they're doing with him as the quarterback, right?
Right.
Like Shanahan and Lynch have made that clear right now. He's the starter. And the only thing that would change that is that if he doesn't come back and Sam Darnold and Trey Lance or one of them, whoever ends up starting, ends up, going like whatever, 12-5 or something like that. They win the division, they go back and we're in the playoffs. The only thing that's, stopping from Purdy from taking back what he earned last season would be that, right? Am I incorrect with that assessment?
No, I just think no, I think you're on the money. I just think that Purdy's, there's expectations. Last year there was none. He came out of nowhere. This year there's going to be expectations and scrutiny, and he's not going to sneak up on anybody. And he's rehabbing the injury, and who knows if he had any time to really work on his body to get it quicker, stronger, faster, or if he's been consumed by this elbow thing.
And that's
We don't
really
know.
that part is what's really got me worried, Larry. At the end of the day, this is a second year player, right? This is not a guy that's played 15 years in this offense where if he shows up week one, he might be a little bit rusty, but you think you're okay. He's still a very, very young player, and he's a talented player at that, right? We saw that at the end of last year. I feel like they are putting I think the expectations on him to return are a little bit it's getting a little bit freaky. And I wish this is where the 49ers beat can frustrate me. Like this scenario is right in front of your eyes. Right in front of your eyes. Ask Kyle Shanahan what he learned from the RG3 situation. Different injury, but that was a player who was rushed back and his career was never the same.
Right. And I think Darnold is here to make sure that doesn't happen. But I also think it's a hedge on Trey. I think it's, I asked this question when they got Darnold. He's a clear hedge. What are they hedging? Are they hedging on Brock's surgery and his health, or are they hedging on Trey's development?
They're hedging both.
I think it's really obvious now that I think we've got all the evidence we need that they're clearly hedging on Brock and they're clearly hedging on Trey.
Yeah.
So now it really comes down to they're probably going to wind up drafting a quarterback because it sounds like they're going to wind up moving one. And I don't know if they'll draft one or if they'll get one after the draft, but I think they'll definitely add another quarterback. That's my guess. But yeah, there's pressure on I think there's pressure on everybody. There's pressure on Shanahan. There's pressure on Lynch. There's pressure on Brock. There's gonna be pressure on Steve Wilkes as a first-year defensive coordinator to maintain that number one defensive status, especially with the addition of Javon Hargrave up front.
Right.
There's expectations now. So yeah, I think, but you know what? They're all big boys and they've all been there before. But so I don't think the pressure
couldn't the 49ers have tempered that for Purdy though? Couldn't they have just said, look, hey, he played great. When he comes back, he's the starter. But right now, we don't know where he is. We don't know. He's not healthy. We're only going to know it in 3 months. Kyle Shanahan kind of said that today. John Lynch didn't say that, though. John Lynch said he's coming back in training camp, right? He said July 28th. Was that not the date he shared?
Well, I mean, John Lynch talked about the timeline like the timeline was purely a guess and that it could be off by a month.
True.
That he could be back in 5 months. That he could be back at some point in practice and be ready for, maybe playing a preseason game and definitely be there well ahead of week one. I don't think any of these things are for sure, but he was talking like it's a possibility. So who knows?
So somebody's talking about, right, like the severity of the injury and whether he comes back. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to comment on the success of the surgery or the non-success of the surgery. What I do know is that just because he's medically clear doesn't necessarily mean he's fully ready to play football, right? Like you can have everything in your body working 100%, but there's also a mental thing you have to get over with these injuries because you have to go back out there and put your body on the line playing, a very, very athletic sport at the highest level again. You're not just coming back to resume, like me, a day job where you're working in IT and doing whatever, right? You have to go out there and actually play football. And I think people are diminishing the value of the offseason, Larry. Like, I think it's big if Brock Purdy doesn't play the entire offseason. I think the offseason would have done him a lot of good, actually. Like if he's coming back, going into his second year, his first year as the starter, being able to take the reps from OTAs through the first phase of, mini camp, through training camp, through all of that, I think it would have made a serious difference for him, Larry, in terms of, where the 49ers are pushing forward. I'm a little bit worried for him returning without the offseason, and that's only for 2023. I'm not so worried about him long-term, Larry, but just for 2023, I am worried. Because I think the offseason does mean something.
Well, and the other thing, this is his moneymaker. He's a quarterback. He uses his arm. His arm was ripped out. He's got major damage there. We don't know how he's going to return. He might have arm strength, but what if he doesn't have accuracy?
Right.
What if he doesn't have touch? One of the things that makes Brock
What if
Purdy
he doesn't have the same courage in the pocket?
one of the things that makes Brock is is the accuracy, the timing, and just he throws a very catchable ball. He also had what I would call just requisite arm strength. Like I don't think that Brock Purdy had like any kind of special arm strength. He had requisite arm strength. Now with this surgery, he may lack requisite arm strength. So there's a chance that he's back, but diminished and never the same. So that's makes the Trey Lance disrespect, if you want to call it that, and I will call it that, even more perplexing because you don't even know that you have any quarterback.
Right. And that's kind of the theme of our show, right? Like the title of it is what changed with Trey Lance. And really the reason we're asking that question is because of Brock Purdy's injury, right? Like everything they said, I think you and I would just say, okay, that makes sense if Purdy is healthy, but we don't even know when Purdy is coming back. And yet they're not recommitting to the plan they originally had with Trey Lance. Why? And I think you and I actually answered that question today too. It's because they don't care who the quarterback is. They just want him on a rookie deal. They don't care if it's Trey Lance. They don't care if it's Brock Purdy. They just want that guy to be on a rookie deal and be capable of playing today. Impulsive says Brock Purdy equals Jimmy G. I don't know what AFA is. Do you know what AFA is?
As far as
look at you, Larry, up to date with all the hip lingo.
Come on, man. Delivery. I mean, LM, come on. I got them all. LFG. I mean, I'm here all day.
LMFAO.
Come on. I mean,
quick delivery, limited arm strength, but is pinpoint accurate and is cool under pressure. He's what Jimmy could have been. He processes better at Jimmy at this point. Especially when he first came in, he was processing very, very quickly and getting the ball out very well on time and in structure within the offense.
Jimmy
got a little bit away from
accurate. Jimmy was not pinpoint accurate. Just wasn't.
Throwing short intermediate, he was. Ball placement got away from him a little bit here and there, Larry, but he was.
Jimmy didn't even try to throw the ball down the field most of the last couple of years. He was with the Niners.
Right.
He never did anything down the field at all.
And Jimmy offered zero once his back foot hit the ground, and if whatever he wanted to throw immediately wasn't available.
Exactly. Jimmy was, Greg Cosell probably said it 100 freaking times. Jimmy's not a great late in the down thrower.
No.
In other words, if you take away his first read, he's cooked.
Feet get panicky. Doesn't know where to go with the ball. Yeah, it gets bad. Casey Cole says, Lynch is scared as hell to play Trey Lance week 1. So clear. Why rush Brock Purdy? Give Trey Lance 4 games. You can reevaluate. You can always go to Brock Purdy later. Injury is not season ending.
I agree. If Trey Lance is there, to me, Brock Purdy being out gives them a window to evaluate Trey Lance under real game conditions in the regular season. It's a gift. I mean, if they wanted him, the 4 weeks at the beginning of the year is ideal. They're not going to go 0-4. They might go 1-3, but they're probably going to go 2-2. Who knows? They might go 3-1. Who
knows who they play? Wait. We don't know who they play. What if they play Arizona? What if they play the Rams?
I mean, you could lose to anybody. It's the NFL.
Right. But I'm just saying, what if the schedule just lines up? Because last year's schedule at the beginning of the season was pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
What if it lines up that way? And look, I think Casey Cole is right. That's what I personally thought they were going to do. But clearly they're not on the same page. They're not doing that. They're not setting it up that way for Trey Lance. Now he has, an opportunity here, but it's not going to be cut and dry where it's his job. They're going to give Sam Darnold a chance to compete here. His contract screams that, and they told us that the last 2 days. Cinnamon Kiss Sin, what up, Sin? Larry, you don't know this. I got destroyed by Sin a couple years ago. We were in some sort of like space having some sort of discussion, and I said something about Andy Dalton as a possible quarterback option for the 49ers like 2 or 3 years ago as a backup, and Sin just ripped me a new one. She said, Vish, you're crazy. What are you talking about with Andy Dalton and all of that? So Sin's super cool. But she says, hi, Vish and Larry. Purdy's great. Too many unknowns currently, including Purdy's health and readiness. So it wouldn't be smart to trade Trey now. And I think Larry and I agree with that point. When Larry says trade Trey, Larry's not saying Larry Krueger would trade Trey Lance. Larry's reading the tea leaves on how John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are talking about Trey Lance. There's a very big difference to it.
Big difference.
And that distinction is just not being drawn right now. Larry's not offering his opinion today on any of this.
I like Trey Lance. I'm the guy who said take Trey Lance over Mac Jones, over Justin Fields. I like Trey Lance. I would have drafted Trey Lance. I believe in Trey Lance. And unlike John and Kyle, who never say anything good about Trey Lance, I'll put my name to it. Trey Lance is going to be a good quarterback in time. I just don't think it's going to be on the Niners timeline. So I can understand that they are going to trade him. And that's how I think. That's what I think's going to happen. I'm not saying I would trade him. There's so many people in the chat who are like, "Why are you trading him, Krug?" I'm just telling you, I think he's going to be traded. It's a difference.
Yeah, and that distinction is very important because what Casey Cole shared about the 4 games and Lance getting that chance is, I think, how you and I thought the offseason would be approached given Purdy's injury. We thought they would just kind of open it right back up to give that guy the shot that, he didn't get last year because he snapped his ankle. The problem is the 49ers don't seem to be talking that way. They don't seem to be doing that. And that's why when we read the tea leaves and we have to talk about what they're saying, now trading him somehow becomes a relevant conversation, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Just because for whatever reason, like Larry, I could not get past it. If you thought he was the guy and you were going to open up everything in 2022, he didn't even play bad yet. He didn't even play good or bad. One game was in a monsoon. Second game, 2 drives into the game. You're up 7-0. He snaps his ankle and he's hurt. You have Brock Purdy. He bails out your season. He plays great. Now, Brock Purdy is severely injured. Why wouldn't you just resume? If you didn't change your mind on Trey Lance, if you felt like Trey Lance, if you really believed, as Shanahan said, that he was going to have a massive season in 2022, you know what they would do, Larry? They would sign a backup that wouldn't have the incentive-laden deal that Darnold had, right? They would just sign a guy who's complete insurance, not a guy that they are going to give a chance to compete and play, which Darnold's contract screams they're going to give him a chance to compete and play.
They told us today they are.
Right. Whether he earns that is a different story, but he's going to get that chance. They wouldn't do that, and they would just say, hey, look, we had a plan with Trey Lance. That went wrong last year. He got hurt. Brock Purdy bailed our season out. It went great. Now, Brock Purdy would be the incumbent, but he's hurt. We're going to resume our plan in 2022 with Trey Lance. They have not said that once. Why have they not said that? It's because they're not embracing the process of developing him. That's it. And that leads Larry to say, hey, I think they're going to trade him before to the draft.
I do. And I wouldn't, because I'd be deathly afraid of Trey becoming Mahomes, because I really think he's got it all right here. And so to me, I'm deathly afraid to trade Trey Lance, which is also why I will have 2 distinctly different takes the day they trade Trey Lance. If they trade Trey Lance for what you guys say he's worth, a 4th round pick, a 5th round pick, some mid-round nothing, I will lose my S and scream bloody murder. But if they trade him for what I think he's worth, which is a mid-first round pick to a mid-second round pick, I'm okay with it. But I'm still going to be nervous about it on the back end. Very nervous. Because I really expect Trey to fulfill his potential. But I just don't think it's going to come on the Niner timeline, but I think it's coming. And I'm scared about what it's going to look like. I mean, Alex Smith became really good in Kansas City. Didn't win a Super Bowl, but I could see Trey doing the same kind of thing and being really, really good late in his career for somebody else and maybe winning a ring or 2, and maybe the Niners could look really bad.
Eric Hernandez says, wasn't this show ending like 20 minutes ago? Well, you know what, Eric? Ask and you will receive. Larry, what a show. What a show. This is an all-time Larry Krueger performance. This is, Michael Jordan's flu game. This is, Joe Montana in the 1988 Super Bowl. Or maybe Jerry Rice in the 1988 Super Bowl. This is Joe Montana in the 89 Super Bowl. This is, Young in the 94 Super Bowl. Larry Krueger wants winners.
I want to win. I want that 6 Lombardi. That is my agenda. I want to win. That's my only agenda, unlike others who literally are screaming terrible things about people all because their quarterback is not the quarterback that they want to win with. I just want to win. I don't care what quarterback I win with.
Before we let you go, David Velez, kind enough to donate one last time to make sure we get to 2 hours, so we appreciate that. By the way, guys, I heard the likes to viewer ratio is not doing too well. What's wrong with you? Smash that like button. Help a guy out. Come on. Smash that like button. Make sure you're, by the way, tuning into the Pig in the Pickle Krug show. It's coming up next. Sponsored by Pig in the Pickle. I feel like I've mentioned Pig in the Pickle so many times on the Vish Kumaran show that I think I need my own sponsorship from Pig in the Pickle, Larry. Pig in the Pickle, reach out to me. Let me know if there's an opportunity there. But David Velez says, I fear that no matter what Kyle and John choose to do at quarterback, it'll be the wrong decision. It seems headed that way.
Oh, I hope you're wrong. I hope you're wrong.
Me too, but I will say this. I disagree with the way they're handling it right now. I would open it up and give Trey Lance a real shot the same way I did in 2022 now that Purdy's hurt. If Purdy wasn't hurt, Purdy would be the starter, Lance would be the backup. I get it. But now that he's hurt, Larry, I would have opened it up and just resumed whatever plan I had in 2022. Because if I really believed in it in 2022, which the Niners told us they did, they told us Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't a hedge. If that was the case, Larry, then why are they not resuming it in 2023?
I don't get it. All I wanted to see from Trey was have Trey be utilized in the same offense that Purdy ran and that Garoppolo ran, and we never saw it. We were never given an opportunity to just watch Trey in the same offense that we've watched the other quarterbacks. I want to see it, and I really believe he could operate it. I really do, but we haven't been able to see it. And Shanahan obviously doesn't believe in him to be able to operate it. So there you go.
Krug, it sounds like you have Red Eye muted on your channel. Now, reading the comment section today, Red Eye, I think it's quite clear why you're muted on Krug's channel. I gotta say, I understand that one a little bit, but Krug, what did you say about muting? I gotta hold your feet to the fire. What did you say about muting?
No, when he says muted, I've not muted anybody ever. You're blocked. You're not muted.
Okay. Krug doesn't mute. He blocks.
I don't mute. I will not mute.
Right. I had to hold your feet to the fire on that one, Krug.
Yeah, I had to
hold your feet to the fire.
To me, if you mute people, you're a wuss. You have to, if you block somebody, stand up with your chest out and say, you're fucking blocked. All right? You're fucking blocked. I muted you. I don't want anybody to know that we have beef, but I'm going to passive aggressive slap you around behind. No, that's weak. That's sorority house crap is what that is.
All right, Krug. I think that's the show. We got to give you a 2-minute rest before you turn over to getting on with Croc. I think that'll do you a lot of good there. Maybe take a couple more sips of that Coke. Is it diet or regular, by the way?
Oh, come on. I can't go diet. I got to go regular. Got to go regular.
All right.
But today I'm going water. Today I'm heavy water.
Everyone, thank you so much for watching. This was an incredible show. Larry and I will be back on the Krug show on Thursday. You will see us back here next Tuesday. In between, I'll figure out, some sort of streaming schedule and try to get a couple of streams in there as well. As always, we appreciate the support, and make sure you're tuning into the Pig in the Pickle Krug show in 2 minutes, where he goes on live with the great, Eric Crocker. Smash that like button, everybody.
One guy said, I have a drunken rant. I had a drunken rant against Larry's intelligence one night. Never seen another comment show up on his show since. I love you, Larry. You know what I'm going to do, Fable, for you? I'm going to go back into the StreamYard, and it's like King's Ransom. Everybody back in the pool. Everybody that's been blocked or muted, if there is such a thing, I will bring you all back. You're all coming back. How about that?
100 out of 184. Come on, guys. We can do better. We can do better. 60%. At least make my completion percentage 65%, guys. What is this? I thought we didn't like 50% completion percentage, and now you're
I'm
giving
out.
me 50% like to viewers. Not great, guys. Appreciate the support as always. Stay good, everybody. We'll see you next time.